All right. Hi, everyone. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. My name's Kai, and I'm going to be presenting this webinar to you today. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. So we are doing this from the West Coast currently. So hello from Vancouver to everyone. I see there's a lot of people from different places all over the world here. Yeah, we're going to get started. So yeah, we're going to be talking more about character dialogue in this webinar here. Basically how characters conversate between each other. We're going to be dealing with lip sync and expressions a little bit. Mostly about expressions and how you can kind of make your character talk and listen and do a variety of things. And then there'll be some very brief linking of props and customized hand sprites as well, which are a very important little concept that I think people come across very often. Okay, so just so you're aware as well, we are recording this webinar, so don't freak out if you miss something or if I'm going too fast in some cases or something. I'll be sending you a video link that you can review at your own leisure. And we're going to be sending out a survey for you guys. At the end of this webinar, if you fill out that survey for us, we'll give you a 10% discount for the content store. So make sure you fill that out and get it back to us for your discount there. And as always, we're going to have a brief Q&A session, question and answer session at the end of this webinar for the last 10 or 15 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, don't put them in the chat window. I know some people are chatting in the chat window. Put them in the Q&A window, Q&A panel, okay? Because that way I'll be able to answer them at the end of the webinar. You can put them in there whenever you want throughout the presentation, but we will be answering them at the very end. And I'll be providing some links as well in the chat window. And speaking of links, let's go ahead and take a look at the thing that we're kind of promoting as part of this webinar here, which is our Animation at Work contest for 2008. This goes until July, so you still have a lot of time to get your stuff done, get some animations done and submitted. A lot of different prizes for this. I think the grand prize is like $2,000 or something like that. A lot of software. We have a lot of partners involved with this as well. So I'm going to provide a link for this in the chat window there. Okay, so you can take a look at this. All panelists and attendees. There we go. Okay, so that's the link for that one. And if you want to take a look at any of the webinar schedules, this one here, this link here is just for the, there's one coming up on June 13th, which is kind of part 3 of this YouTube series, or webinar series rather. And this is going to be talking more about customizing your character and creating a blog style animation, you know, for whatever purposes you want, mostly for YouTube, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to add that to the chat window there as well. Whoops. Shabam, there we go. And this is our webinar homepage. Okay, I'm going to provide this link as well for you guys if you want to take a look at that. And this will give you a little look at any of the upcoming webinars. We have one coming up for CrazyTalk 8 next week. I believe next Wednesday or Thursday, or wherever you are in the world, it could be a different day. But yeah, we're going to be just talking about the basic CrazyTalk 8 stuff in that one as well. Nothing too complex, mainly meant for beginners as well. Okay, so I'm going to close down Chrome. Don't have to worry about opening Chrome anymore. And let's get started. So just as a precursor here, this is a pretty lame joke that I read on the internet a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago, I guess. And so I'm just going to go ahead and play this back for you. Let's make sure that we are sharing the computer sound. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and play the video, the finished video back for you, and then we'll talk about deconstructing it. Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend. Can you make me one with everything?
Greetings, weary traveler. Alas, to be one with everything takes years of deep meditation.
I meant on my hot dog.
Ah, yes, of course, sir. Here you are.
Thanks. Now, what about my change?
Change comes from within, my hungry wanderer. You need to search for something. You need to find your inner peace.
Oh, I've got my inner peace right here. So how about my change back?
Ah, there is no need for violence. It seems that your change has found you. Safe journey, my insatiable soul searcher. Will you be on your way now?
Nah, I'ma stay. Okay, so apologies for the super cheesy joke. But yes, that's what we're going to be trying to recreate. We're going to be recreating some of that, not all of that today, because I'm going to have to kind of go through a little bit slower and explain things. But if you want to take a look at the script, here's the script called The Lame Joke, a very accurate title. And this is the back and forth with the customer and the vendor. And we'll provide this script for you as well later on. Okay, so don't worry about that. And also all the projects that we are working with here. There's only one real project, and we'll be sending that to you as well. Okay, coolio. Let's get started. I think that's about all of the introduction that we need. Okay, so we have the exact same project loaded up here in CrazyTalk Animator. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start from scratch. All right, dun, dun, dun. So we're going to kind of just remove all the animation from both of our characters and start from scratch with the lip sync. So generally what I like to do with a project is I like to get the lip sync and the audio taken care of first, because that gives you the timing for the rest of your motions. Okay, so if you have two characters talking back and forth, the most important thing generally is to get them, have the dialogue in there first, so you can time their gestures and their motions to the dialogue. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's just go ahead and remove object animation from this guy. Right click on the character, you can select remove object animation. That just removes all the animation completely from your character. Okay, so if I play back, we have some camera movement. We don't have to worry about that. Let's just take off the camera movement for now by going up here and deselecting camera record mode. So if this is white or not red, then it'll just won't be recording animated camera mode. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first thing. We have to do a really quick brief walk for our character first. If you were in the last webinar, you probably are familiar with this. Very important concept to create a walk, and I'm going to do it really quickly because it's really simple and easy to do. So to select our character walking up to the hot dog vendor here with a single hot dog on his tray, on his cart rather there, we're going to go over here to animation rather, the tab, and then over here to G3 human. This is a G3 character, so you need to use G3 human animations for it. And it's a side-facing character, so you need to use these side-facing motions, okay, here. So the side-facing motions, of course, are indicated by the S in the top left-hand corner there, okay? And we're just going to go ahead and use a walk. Ooh, excuse me. Okay, so there's 3 walks here, and these come embedded with CrazyTalk Animator 3, so you should all have these. There's 1, which S stands for start, 2L stands for loop, and 3E stands for end, okay? So we're going to start the walk, double-click on that, and then have him take maybe, we'll just double-click it again, double-click it a 3rd time, and that should be enough. So that's like 6 steps. We'll should probably take him to about the front of this wheel right here. And then we'll go ahead and double-click on the 3E, which is the end, okay? And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the music down for this part of the webinar, since we don't want to have that playing in the background the whole time. Okay, so what we have here is we have walk start and walk end. Okay, now what you want to do here is press F3 to go into your timeline. Very important hotkey to learn, F3, and that'll take you into your timeline. We're just going to also have this thing selected here, which is object related track. Make sure that's red, because if you select whatever thing in your scene, your track will change to that item. So you can select our character, the chair, the hot dog cart, okay? So it's always really useful because it'll just pop up with whatever you select in your screen. Okay, and we have our motion track open. You can see we have the walk 1S right here. We have the walk 2L. We have 3 of them. You can also loop them as well, but I just kind of applied them 3 after the other, one after the other there. And then the walk end, okay? So separate clips. What we want to do is worry about the transform position, at the position of your character on the screen. So let's go ahead and right here, what we're going to do is we can actually just start from the very beginning, okay? And as he takes his last step, which is, you can see his left foot takes the last step right there, that's when we want our transform position to end. Okay, so we're just going to move our character, click and drag him and move him over here. Okay, so if we play back then, you can see our character will walk from here to here. And you'll see he'll kind of slide a little bit at the beginning like this. So if you don't want that slide, what you can do is you can click on the first keyframe, right click on it and select copy, and then move it maybe to about somewhere like here, and right click and paste it. Okay, that means from here he won't move until he kind of pushes off that foot. Okay, and then if we play back, all right, pretty small steps, but you can always move the position closer or further away if you want, like this, and whatever. We won't worry too much about that. We want to focus more on dialogue in this webinar here. Okay, so we have our character just walking towards the dude and stops. Okay, good. So I have a bunch of wave files that I've prepared for this webinar. This is the dialogue in our script. So let's look at the first one. The first one is the customer walks up and says, "Hello there, my fine hot dog vendor friend. Can you make me one with everything?" And the joke is that, in the Buddhism, you're one with everything, whatever. Okay, I'm not going to explain the joke too much. But, okay, you've probably heard it before from someone who's better at telling jokes than I am. But let's go ahead and play that or create a script first, okay? So with our character, we're going to go over here to create script, and we want to select the wave file. And I have it all saved out here, all the audio files. So C1, C stands for customer, and V stands for vendor. Okay, so C1 would be the customer's very first dial or very first script.
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend. Can you make me one with everything?
Okay, so hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then we'll go a few frames ahead by clicking this button right here, maybe 4 frames ahead. You can always adjust the timing later, and then we're going to have the hot dog vendor's response. So this is what I mentioned earlier. I like to just put in the audio files first, okay? So I'm just going to do it back and forth between each character. So for the vendor, select the wave file, V1.
Greetings, weary traveler. Alas, to be one with everything takes years of deep meditation.
Okay, and then maybe a few frames ahead again. Okay, and select our other character. This part can be a little bit monotonous, but obviously I'm just doing it.
I meant on my hot dog.
Here, everyone. I meant for the hot dog. And then vendor, script, wave file, and vendor 2.
Ah, yes, of course, sir. Here you are.
Okay, here you are. Here's your hot dog. And then he hands him a hot dog. Okay, so we're going to just stop the dialogue there, because at this point we have to have a kind of significant motion of him picking up the hot dog and handing it to our character. Okay, so let's go ahead and just click and drag our project link little red marker here in the bottom. We're going to click and drag it all the way to about here. So this is going to be our project link, okay? And I'm going to go back to frame 1 now by pressing the stop button. You can also go back to frame 1 here. And press F3 to go into the timeline with my character selected. Okay, so I'm going to just click off the motion track right now. And we're going to go into the face track. And in the face track, under the voice clip, you'll find your voice clips right here. So this one here is CTS Visine Talk Pose clip. This is the script right here. This is his dialogue. So if I go to voice clip and I twirl it down, you can see below that is the wavelength of the audio file, okay? And below that are the keyframes that indicate different visine shapes, so different mouth shapes for your character's speech, okay? And we can adjust these later on. I'll show you how in just a moment here. Let's go ahead and you can hold the Alt key and scroll your mouse button, by the way, to zoom out. So you can see this right here. So here we go.
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend. Can you make me one with everything?
Okay, so at this point here, he's talking, but he's not really doing anything. What we want to do generally is we want to give him a motion that kind of gives us more energy in the conversation, okay? So we don't want him to just be standing there motionless like a robot. We want to give him some sort of motion. Now, I'll talk about a couple of different ways to do this throughout this webinar, but the easiest way to do it, obviously, is just to go and add an idle motion to your character or a talking motion. Okay, so with our character selected, we're actually going to just basically, right after he stops walking there, we're going to go to the same animation folder here, Elastic Float Side. And now I'm going to go to idle and talk, okay? And, we can have him do, I don't know, there's like pose, stand, there's a talking one, but we're going to say the talking one for the next one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this stand 0, 1. Okay. Stand 0, 2.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, he crosses his arms in that one. I don't like it. It's kind of hard to keep track of which one are which here. Let's go ahead and delete that one. Maybe we'll go to choose the stand one here.
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend.
Okay, so he says, hey, my fine hot dog vendor friend. So he's kind of moving,
Hello, my
drifting a little bit back and forth. Okay, just like that. And after he's done that, I'm going to have him point. So there's a point one here somewhere. There we go. Point upper right, I believe, is what we want. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and point upper right. And you can see it's really fast. And this is the clip right here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to click and drag this clip a little bit further on. Okay, play back. So when he says, can you make me one with anything, which starts right here, we're going to take that clip and we're going to stretch it out a little bit by going over here to adjust the speed. Okay, so we're going to toggle our speed on. Okay, you can toggle loop over here and speed, Alt L and Alt S, but I find it's just easier to click on them. And then I'm going to click and drag on the edge of the clip to make it longer. What that does is it extends our point. Okay, so now we have this.
Can you make me one with everything? Greetings.
Okay, so perfect timing.
Can you make me one with everything?
All right, good. And so that's basically his movement for the first part of dialogue there. Now we move on to our street vendor character. And because we have that object-related track selected, we can just click on him and it'll replace the tracks in our timeline here. Okay, so with this guy selected, let's go ahead and use our motion track, open up the motion track rather, and go down here to talk, all right? So we'll just have this talk 1S start. Okay.
Greetings, weary traveler.
Okay, so then we just use the talk 2L for loop, and then let's do the talk 3E for end, okay? Okay, so we have this.
Greetings, weary traveler. Alas, to be one.
And then, from here on, we can add other stuff like, let's do something interesting. What I'm going to do is we're going to actually use a motion, because there's a lot of animations that are like seated, and characters are talking or whatever when they're seated. But you can actually turn those into standing motions, and I'll show you how. Pretty easy actually to do. So what we're going to do is go find one that's, this is from a purchased content pack, so just be aware. You'll have to purchase this one from the content store. And let's go to G3 Human Motions Occupation Animations, okay? And server and waitress, there's one here for listening. Okay, let's just go ahead and double click this.
Alas, to be.
Okay, and then this one, loop.
The one with everything takes years of deep meditation.
Okay, and then the end.
I meant on my.
Okay, so then we've combined, basically just given our character some gestures while he's talking. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, if I play back from here.
Alas, to be one with everything takes years of deep meditation. I meant on my hot dog.
Okay, I think it looks okay. So what are we going to do after that? Oh, we were actually going to do a seated one. I'll do the seated one later. Okay, so that's just a quick motion right there. And then we'll move to our other character. Okay, so this is kind of just the way that I do it. I know maybe some people might have a different workflow, but I like to get the body animations out of the way as well, because then you can use your facial animations to complement the body gestures and stuff. So let's go ahead from here.
Ah, yes, of course, sir.
Oh, so here he says,
meditation. I meant on my hot dog.
I meant on my hot dog. So at this point here, maybe he's a little bit exasperated, and he'll say something like, I meant on my hot dog. And let's choose something like G3 Human Motions Family Life. And this one we'll use a seated one, okay? And I'll kind of switch it. So, gosh, there's so many motions here. Again, this is a purchased one. In the kitchen, I believe there's one. Sit talk. Okay, so there's sit talk 1 right here, okay? So let's go ahead and just apply that to our character.
I meant on my hot dog.
Okay, so he just kind of moves his hand up a little bit like that. So that's fine and dandy. However, we need to adjust that. So let's go ahead and close down the face track, close down the transform track, and here you see our sit talk. And what's going to happen is there's a little transition area at the very beginning of the sit talk. You'll notice from here to here, I'll just kind of whoop, sit down. You can click and drag and extend this transition area like this if you want, and his seating motion will take a longer period of time. Okay, just like this. Now, obviously, we don't want him to be seated, so let's go ahead and click and drag that transition to a little bit smaller, a little bit of a shorter period of time. And what I'm going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and use our motion key editor over here, 2D motion key editor, and make sure you're in the very, very first frame of the transition. Okay, so just click on this motion key editor and just go ahead and press reset all. And what that's going to do is that's going to add a keyframe there in the hip transform track, as well as all the other tracks for our character. So if we select like the arm, for example, you can see the right arm also has it selected just like that. Okay, so whoops, let's just get rid of that. And then he's going to be standing. And at this frame here, the very first frame of the actual clip, we want to do the same thing, reset all. But in this case, what we want to do is we also want to move our character up. Okay, so to do that, what you can do is you can grab his waist, grab his hip bone right here. Okay, so we have the hip bone selected. But if we move it up, it'll move the entire character. Obviously not something we want. So let's go ahead and press Control-Z to undo that. Okay, so we'll go back to the original position. You can also just press reset all. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to have our character in that upright position. So, you know, what we can do is we can actually just manually do it and lock his feet. So if I select his feet, for example, right foot 2, you want to go over here and select lock selected bone, and then select right foot and lock selected bone, and right shank and lock selected bone. So that's, you can see they turn kind of like transparent red right there, and that means they're locked. And I'll show you what happens now if I try to move my character's hips. Notice that that leg will stay locked to the ground, while this leg will move however we want it, okay? Because it's not locked. Now, obviously, we want both feet to be locked, so let's do the same thing for the left shank right there, locked bone, left foot, lock it, and left foot 2, lock it. And then we can take his hip, and we can move him up like this, all right? There we go. Just move him into a relatively standing position there, okay? And we can take this hip bone maybe and leg bone and maybe rotate it a little bit. And then take this one and then unlock it. What do we have selected here? Oh, we need this left shank. And just, zoop, there we go. And we should be good. Oops. Something relatively even there. Left foot. And just rotate that slightly. Okay, so then what we'll have is we'll have something like this. A minute on my okay, barely noticeable. All right. So what we can do is we can just go ahead and play that back. And we officially change a seated motion to a standing motion, okay? So it just gives you more variety.
I meant on my hot dog. Ah, yeah.
Okay, so you said I meant on my hot dog. And then, okay, at that point here, yes, we'll just do a quick.
Yes.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is linking. But before we get into that, what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about how to kind of change your character's expressions on their face. Okay, now this stuff's pretty easy. I like to go ahead and the first thing I like to do is use the facial key editor. Okay, and so I'm going to click on that, and it brings up your face key editor over here. Let's go ahead and play back.
Hey.
Okay, so when he sees our vendor, okay, there's a couple things we can do here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on his face. You'll notice that he'll have the kind of silly, just regular neutral expression on his face. If I just play this part back here.
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend.
Okay, which is fine, but maybe you want to add a little bit more detail onto it, okay? So maybe you want to have him, you want his eyes to be a little bit squinty, or like, maybe more recognition with the vendor or something like that. His eyes want to be happier, and you want to raise his eyebrows or something like that. Well, what I like to do is use these templates here. Okay, so you can go over here to template, and there's a whole bunch of expression templates you can use. Expression styles, there's happy, there's angry, sad, sick, and all this stuff here. Okay, so we're going to close down the motion track because that's for body. And if we, maybe at this point right here, we want him to have a happy expression where he recognizes the vendor before he starts talking, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna open up the face track and I'm gonna double click on this neutral expression here, okay? And what that does is that adds a little clip in the facial clip track. If I twirl that down, you can see it adds another keyframe in the face track below that, okay? Now these keyframes are used for all the facial animations, all right? And so here, maybe at this point here, we're gonna have him kind of have a more smiley expression like this, okay? So from here to here, we're gonna have our character smile, okay? And we can do it for as long as we want. If we want, we can actually press Control Z and undo that, or just delete that keyframe there as well and make it even further down. So maybe something like this. And if I do that, it's going to extend that clip even further, okay? So you can see this clip will always be at the top, and you can manipulate the keyframes underneath it, okay? So from here to here, he's going to smile, okay? And if you want to add some additional, kind of facial animation to that, what we can do is from here to here, let's maybe have him kind of, his eyes will kind of just wink up like I mentioned before, and his eyebrows will go up even further. So let's go ahead and add a neutral expression here. So right here, what I'm going to do is he's back at the neutral expression, but we're going to go to transform, and we're going to take his eyebrows, and we're going to zoom in really close on his eyes there, and move those eyebrows higher up, just like this. Okay, so then what happens is from here, you'll notice that, whoa, his eyebrows are like way too high, just like this, okay? Like that, and from there to there. Now what we can do at this point is we can actually just go ahead and, at this point, maybe just move them down a little bit because they are a little bit too high. They're kind of off his head. And that's because we're combining the two animations together, or the expression, and we're kind of even pumping those eyebrows up even higher. Okay, so then right here, eyebrows go up, and here they stay up, and maybe here, we're gonna actually take the eyes themselves, and we're gonna deform the eyes. Okay, so when you deform the eyes, there's a couple things you can do here, like we'll take the eyes up like this, and just kind of make them a little bit smaller, okay, almost like he's the character squinting. Okay, so we're just basically deforming it slightly. And we'll do the same thing with the other eye. You can also select them from the image over here. And there we go. Just take those up. And there you go. It looks a little bit more friendly. Barely noticeable, but a little bit more friendly. Okay? And right here, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and select Reset All. So at this frame is where I have the eyes deformed, and right here is where I want to go ahead and select Reset All. Okay? That's going to reset all the deformation back to normal there, okay? And if we go into our face motion track here, you can see we have a face deform, all right? A face deform track we can open. I probably should open that earlier, but there it is. Okay, so there's the keyframes that we just created with the deform. So the deform has its own track. The transform has its own track, which is right here. There's face transform as well. Okay, so when we did the transform for the movement of our character's face, we added those keyframes right here, and for the deform, we added these keyframes right here. So transform, deform have their own tracks. And the template one will just be these ones right here in this face track and the clips. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The morph is used for morph-based characters, okay? So we're gonna kind of just maybe repeat this a couple times just to kind of hit it home, I guess, a little bit more for you guys. So right here, you can see from here to here, his eyes will get smaller and his eyebrows will go up like that. Okay, so he'll start his, hey, hello, my. Okay, so maybe at this point here, let's go ahead and actually click this keyframe right here. We're gonna right click it and select copy. And however long you want this transition or this facial pose to remain, you can just go to that frame and right click and paste it. Oops. Well, it should be copying there. Copy. Oh, it's not letting us paste it. All right. Not sure what happened there. Anyways, you should be able to do that. But what you can do then is you can go back into the facial key editor then and just go ahead and add a template and maybe the neutral expression. Okay, there we go. Okay, so add that neutral expression, and the deform and the transform have remained the same. So we can click and drag these ones and right click. These ones should copy, okay, and paste them over here. Okay, so from here to here, his eyes are going to remain squinted, his eyebrows are going to remain up, and then from here to here, we'll have them move back to the regular transform position. So we'll go to transform, and we're going to reset all, and the eyebrows will reset their position, and deform, and reset all. And the eyes will actually change their deform back to the regular shape. So from here to here, yeah, his eyebrows will go down, and his eyeballs will return to their normal shape, okay? So,
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog.
it's very fast, but I just kind of wanted to show you the concept. And we'll talk more about, we'll do it a couple more times throughout this webinar here.
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend.
Okay, now I wanted to talk briefly about the lip sync animation as well. Now, the lip sync is automatically created, and to be honest with you, for these types of characters, you don't really have to have detailed lip sync animation because they're just 2D characters with very limited facial sprites. I come from a background where we use like iClone, where you have to have very detailed morphs, and your facial lip sync has to be very detailed. But for these kind of characters, you can get away with a lot, is all I'm saying here. So let's do something like
hey, hello, my fine hot.
Okay, so here he's saying my fine, okay.
My fine.
Fine is right here. Now, obviously his mouth is not making the f shape, okay? So you want to change that. And to do that, you go into your voice clip section where I showed you earlier, okay? So right here. And you can click or drag any one of these keyframes, and you can just double click it, and you can change it to whatever you want. So I'm going to just go ahead and choose the right here. Now, obviously, this doesn't really look too much like a but this is the character library that we have. There's different expressions you can use, like j. Okay, so I think there's about 5 separate sprites for this character, but we'll just keep with that one. So fine. Okay, fine. Okay, so that'll be fine. All right, and that's just basically how you can edit the lip syncing. What you can do as well is you can adjust the expressiveness, but again, with these types of characters, they use the sprite switching for their facial animation, or for their lip sync rather. You're just not going to do a whole lot when you change the expressiveness. It's mostly used for morph-based characters, like an iClone, or the kind of characters you create from images by yourself in CrazyTalk Animator 3. Okay, I just wanted to briefly mention that because it's not too important for these particular types of characters, because like I mentioned, they use sprite switching for their lip sync as opposed to blending their mouth shapes together. Okay, so just kind of switching from one sprite to the next. Okay, so.
Hey, hello, my fine hot dog vendor friend. Can you?
Okay, and I think that looks fine. And what we can do here is if we wanted to add like another expression onto his face.
You make me one with everything. Green.
Okay, so let's go back to the hot dog vendor then, and let's do like a little bit of facial animation with him. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I kind of want to show you a couple of good examples before I move on to the sprite switching and the linking and all that stuff. Okay, so let's do an example with this kind of character, because he has the same facial type, I guess, using sprite switching animation, but his eyes and eyebrows and everything are a little bit different. So let's go ahead and focus on him.
Greetings, weary traveler.
Okay, so what we're going to do is do the same thing with this character here. So let's make sure we have him selected. And we're going to close down the motion track. We're going to open up the face track here. There's his Visine clip, okay? And let's go to our face key editor and use a template. Let's just use neutral, okay? Which he already is at. But we need to add a keyframe to start our animation. So from here to here, as he says greetings, we can change it to like happy, okay? You can see his eyes look a little bit more squinty there. Happy 2, happy 3, Okay, I think this is a pretty good one, happy 3. Okay, you can see his eyebrows raised and his eyes will get kind of a little bit squinty. And we can do the facial clip. And you can see if we go to the face right there, there's our templates, okay? The neutral template keyframe and the happy 3 template keyframe, okay? So from here to here, you'll see he just raised his eyes like this. Okay.
Greetings, weary traveler.
Okay, so maybe here we want him to go back to a different expression. So again, before you change, make sure you put a keyframe here, because that means from this keyframe here to this keyframe here, he's going to have that same happy 3 expression for this entire duration. Now what you can do as well is you can use the tab key and shift tab. Okay, if you're dealing with keyframes, for example, if I select the first keyframe here and I press tab, I can go to the second one and tab again. I'll go to the third one. If I press shift tab, I can go back. Okay, and that'll take you to that exact keyframe or that exact frame where your next or previous key is. Okay, very important little tip if you're doing a lot of facial animation, the tab and the shift tab. And you can do that for anything else as well, like transform positioning, basically any keyframe in CrazyTalk Animator. Okay, so from here to here,
Alas.
and then before he says alas, maybe he gets a more serious expression on his face. So we'll go to like here, for example, a few frames later, and let's give him like a maybe sad. Okay, that's a little bit too sad. Maybe this one, helpless. Okay, so you can see one of his eyebrows is kind of tilted up. So from here to here, he'll say alas, and he'll change that expression. So
Alas, to be one with everything takes years of deep meditation.
Okay, and so we'll just double click on that helpless again, and
I mint on my hot dog.
And I think from here to here we'll just do a neutral one after he finishes his dialogue there.
I mint on my hot dog.
And then after he says I mint on my hot dog, he'll say ah. Okay, so another neutral one. As he makes that realization, we'll give him this like happy one. Okay, so there's more like an ah kind of face. Okay, so you can see as he realizes what he's talking about. Okay, then we have this is kind of the lazy man's way to animate, to be honest with you, and I use it pretty often. So just kind of at different frames, just add a different expression, so you don't have to manually manipulate the eyebrows and the eyes and deform everything by themselves. So the first example I gave you is where I just kind of showed you, if you want to go into more detail, how you can adjust the deform and transform positions and all that stuff. This method is like really easy, just having one expression after the other, and you don't even have to worry about going into the facial transform, deform, or sprite tracks here, because right down here you'll see nothing there except for the sprite one, which this one changes the sprite. Okay, we'll talk about sprite switching at the very end. Okay, so I think that's a good enough explanation for kind of how I generally do facial animation. Again, a lot of using expressions. You can deform stuff and transform stuff as well. But I'll admit I use a lot of the expressions, to be honest. It's a little bit faster. And then you can go ahead, after you've done the expressions, you can go ahead after that and refine them even more using transform, position, and deform. So you can combine them together as well, like I showed you in the first example there. Okay, but what I want to focus on now is I want to focus on how he hands the hot dog from, handing the hot dog from one character to the next. Okay, let's go ahead and just keep that right there. We'll close down the face key editor, and let's zoom out of our timeline and play back.
I mint on my hot dog. Ah, yes, of course, sir. Here you are.
Okay, so let's just give him a regular expression before we move on here. Was that happy 7? Okay, good. And then move over to here. Another frame down, another 5 frames down maybe, and give him a neutral expression. Okay, so this is the expression he has when he's handing him a hot dog. Okay, so from here to here, what I'm going to do is let's just extend our project. And we're going to have our character reach over and grab the hot dog. So you can manually do this very easily, and I'll show you how using that 2D motion key editor again. And so all I'm going to do is just press reset all. Okay, and that's going to add that keyframe there in the hip transform track. Okay, and then from here to here,
Here you are.
Okay, so from here to here is when we're going to have him move towards the hot dog. Okay, so he's going to grab the hot dog. Now we're just going to, you can actually click and drag on the hip bone like this, and you can see it moves his position, which we don't want. Okay, to keep that in mind, just press reset all, and we can just like lock his hands, or we can even just like twist, rotate his hip, or we can take his chest bone here. If we move the chest bone, you can see we can do like a movement like this. Okay, so we can have him stretch out like that to maybe grab it with his mouth or something if we wanted to, but obviously a little extreme. We wouldn't want to do that. Okay, but let's go ahead and move his chest bone a little bit over here. We'll take his right arm and rotate it like this. And there you go. He looks like he's grabbing the hot dog. Good enough for me. And you bring it down a little bit and have his forearm a little bit up like that. Okay, so what's happening is from this keyframe to this keyframe, he's reaching out to grab the hot dog. All right, pretty simple stuff. Now, if you want to add a bit more variety, this might be a little bit too fast as well. So yeah, I think it's okay. Speed is okay. If you want to make it a little bit longer, you can click and drag all the keyframes right here. Okay, make sure you click and drag all of them. The transform, because there's forearm, there's arm, there's torso, there's hip, and click and drag those a little bit further, okay? And that'll make your animation longer. Okay, so like this. And then what you can do is you can, if you want to add variety, you know, for example, you can take the arm one by itself and move it over a little bit longer, and then the forearm even further down like this, and it'll just make it seem a little bit less uniform. Okay, so you can see that the arms will actually move a little bit after the hips have reached their destination, okay? And that's kind of generally what you want to do as a rule. You don't want him to have like robot movement where his whole body moves at once. You kind of want to add some variety to that, all right? There you go. Okay, so at this frame here, we're going to have him link the hot dog to his hand there, okay? And so the easy way to do that, select your hot dog, and this is a prop, of course, so we're just going to have it link. You can actually right-click it, I believe. Can you? Nope, that's only an icon. All right, so select your hot dog there, and up here there is a link, right? So you can just select link, and it's going to prompt you to link it to something. We'll link it to the character's hand, and then what we're going to do is we're going to select our character and have him return to his regular position, all right? So right here, we have all those motion keyframes, and then let's go ahead and open up the motion key editor over here, and we're going to take that chest right there and go down here, and once you select all of the items, okay, if I select them, then they're going to appear in the track down here, okay? And let's go ahead and just copy these ones, the first two, maybe to this frame right here, and then click and drag and copy these two ones to this frame here as well, okay? And again, you can spread them out to whatever time you want, and then from here to here, we're just going to go ahead and press reset all, okay? And there you go, it's back into position, okay? So from here to here, there you go. Now he has a hot dog in his hand. And for time constraints, I'm not going to go into much more detail on that, but what happens is he hands in the hot dog, and I basically just unlink the hot dog from his hand and link it to the other guy's hand, okay? So pretty simple stuff. But what I want to focus on more right now is, I think a lot of people want to know is like, when he brings out that gun, how does he bring out the gun? And to do that, and also to take a sip of the Starbucks cup that's sitting here, all right, it's all visual trickery. I'm actually going to open up the project here, and I'll deconstruct it for you just for a time constraint here. And I'll show you how to do it. Basically what happens is I create a custom sprite for his hand, okay? So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the hand sprites, but every character has a bunch of different hand sprites. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that point where he takes out the gun. Okay, and right there. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention as well is when you're having your character listen to another character talk, like in this point right here from frame 850 about to whatever. Okay, so right here, pay attention to the character on the left and pay attention to what his head is doing.
You need to find your inner peace. Oh, I've got my inner...
Okay, so obviously that's not an animation that I applied, but what I did is I just basically added an idle kind of animation for him using the facial puppet tool. Okay, this is a very useful tool over here, the facial puppet tool. I find it more useful for when it's like you want to do a really, really fast animation. So if I zoom in on my character's face, let's actually just go to the camera animation mode here, record mode. Okay, so let's take a look at our character's face. So right now on his face, he has an expression, which I showed you how to add before. And if we go to preview, you can see you can animate the face like this as well. Okay, so when your character's talking, you can have him use the facial puppet tool, just like this. You press the preview button and then press space to preview it. And you can, do all this stuff. What I like to do is I like to press this button up here and press clear selection. And if I record, or if I press these buttons right here, the rotate head and the 3D movement buttons right here, what I can then do is if I press space to preview, you can have your character only rotate the head, okay? And what's gonna happen is they'll keep the expression on the face. Although it shows a change, it's actually gonna keep that expression on the face. And I'll show that to you a little bit later. But I think for time constraints, we're gonna talk about the sprite switching right now. And we'll talk about the facial puppet in just a moment here. And if you have any questions as well, again, feel free to put those in the Q&A panel there. Okay, so the hot dog is in his hand right now. You can see just like that. And then the hot dog kind of flies out. He just throws it away. And at this frame here, the trickery is, boom, suddenly he has a gun in his hand. Now, the gun in his hand is, if we go over here to the sprite editor, and we select his left hand there. There we go. You can see there's a left hand with a gun, a left hand with a cup, and a cup facing this way, okay? I created two of them. And the gun is right here. Now, you can add this, change it to a fist or a pad or whatever. Now, the way that you create the custom sprite, I'll show you how to do that, and you just switch it out, basically. If I press F3 and go into my timeline, you can see here, if we have the sprite editor open and the hand selected, it's going to open that R hand _ S, which stands for sprite. And this track, you can see right here, we have a regular hand.
Oh, I've got my
and then here, right at this point right here, it's going to change to the gun. Okay, so this is the gun sprite, okay? You can go over here and change to a cup if we want. You can see that sprite will change. Or we can just change it back to the gun, and it'll just, nothing will change, okay? All right, so you can see those little keyframes, and that's the different sprites that'll be on your character. Now, to create that gun sprite, what I did, this way here, you need to have the pipeline version of CrazyTalk Animator, so just be aware of that, okay? You can also do it manually as well, and I'll show you how to do that here. I'm going to select my character and go up here to the composer mode. And with the character selected, let's go ahead and select the right hand right there, okay? And what you can do is you can launch it to an external image editor. I believe if you don't have the pipeline, this is the one you can use. Okay, and mine's set to Photoshop as well. Okay, and it should just launch that hand. All right, so you can use this way, and I don't think you need the pipeline version for this. I'm pretty sure you don't, like 90% sure you don't. Now, if you have the pipeline version, you can actually launch the whole character by going over here to launch to external PSD editor. Okay, and this is going to launch your entire character. And here you have the option to launch the whole body, the head or body in two separate files. I normally just choose head and body in one file. And this stuff we'll talk about a little bit later. Generally, you want to have a higher image scale because you're changing, you want your characters, the resolution of all your characters' body sprites, you want them to be as high as possible. Not as high as possible. I think 2000 by 3000 is a fine resolution. And then you just launch that, and you'll just go ahead and launch it in Photoshop. And that notification that came up said it's going to change it from a vector element to an image-based element, okay? And we'll get into the details of that too much right now. But here's your character, and under here you'll have all the different sprites for your hand. I'm just going to click here to make those bones invisible for now. And the talking head. Oh, we don't want to take off the head. All right, we'll just focus on the hands right now. Oops. So what I'm going to do is you can select the hand right here, and you can show all the other hands. So this is a peace sign, 7, okay, all those other signs right there. Hand gestures, whatever you want to call them. Okay, and then you can do them one at a time and bring your character back in. But what I'm going to do here is we have this, relaxed hand pose right here, and if I press Control, Alt, and I believe that's your image size, and you can change it to whatever you want. Oh, Control, Shift, and I rather. Oh, or is it image canvas size? Alt, Control, and C. All right, that one. I'm going to change my canvas size to something like 600 by 600. Okay. And then what I just did is I just basically added a gun in there. And so you can do something like use a lasso tool. Apply that transform. And maybe take out this section here. Just like that. Control X. And then make a new layer over here. And Control V. And then press the V hotkey to move it back into position. But now you can actually put a gun between there. So the gun, what I did with the gun is, I think I just rendered it out from CrazyTalk Animator actually as an image. So if I just create a new project here, the gun can be found. You can probably find a cartoon one online as well. Like, just go to like cartoon gun, right? One of these, okay. You want to make sure it's a PNG, so go to Settings, Advanced Search, and File Type PNG, because you want to make sure it's transparent. All right, let's give him a 6-shooter right here. This one looks fine. This will do. Save image as gun. Okay. Click and drag that gun into Photoshop. Shazam, there we go. All right. And let's just make it the right size. Place it right about there. And press enter. All right. And then we can take this layer, put it over top of that layer. There you go. Now he's holding a gun. Okay. So obviously this is a kind of a pretty crappy job I did, but you get the point. This is kind of the procedure you want to go through. And then what you do is you just select everything and move it over here a little bit and change your canvas size. You can actually make it larger if you want. All right. Something like lot. Then press enter. And then just maybe just save it out. Save as a PNG to your desktop. And we'll call this gun hand. Okay. And then go into CrazyTalk Animator. Oh, where'd our character go? Oh, well, let's bring in another one. I'll show you how to do it from scratch. G3 human, and bring in this dude here, and we'll give him a gun. I believe that was the right hand we used. So we'll go to composer mode here one more time. And this is the last thing I'll show you here, and then I'll go to the Q&A session, right? Since we're a bit over time. So select the right hand and go over here to Sprite Editor. And then with the Sprite Editor, you see all the different hand sprites. Let's zoom in on the hand here so you can see it a little bit closer. All right, so all the different hand sprites right here. And then you have the option to add a hand sprite, which is this one right here. Add new sprite, right? And then we're going to find our gun hand on the desktop. And just select that. You can see, oops, all right, it's a little bit large, but we can resize it just like this. We can rotate it around and move it to position like that, all right? So there you go. That's how you put a gun in a character's hand. And there you go. All right, so just change to whatever size you like. All right, and then what can happen is you go back into stage mode and have our character, sprite editor, select the hand, and switch it to a gun hand. And then you'd move it to whatever position. This one you might want to flip it. And if you need to flip it, what I do is I just save multiple sprites into the hand library. And to flip it, obviously in Photoshop, you just like flip it like image rotation, like flip canvas horizontal. And there you go, you have one facing the other side. And then save that as desktop. Gun flip. Okay. And then in composer mode, one more time, just repeat the process. Right hand, sprite editor, and add gun flip. And resize that one. Let's move in here a little bit. There you go. And just place it wherever you want. There you go. So then we'd switch it to the other sprites on the hand. And the way that I swapped out those, I'm actually going to load in the Starbucks or the project really quick again, just to show you one final thing, how we switched out the prop with the cup prop with the cup in the guy's hand. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly. I know I'll have a question about that probably. And basically what I did is I just used the same prop the same procedure I just showed you with the gun. I did that with the Starbucks cup. So let's go to that frame where he switches out and says namaste, which is supposed to be namaste, but it's supposed to sound like namaste, like the yoga greeting or whatever. Not sure if it's Hindu or whatnot, but all right. Let's go ahead and take a look at our F3, go into our sprite editor here for our character. Select the hand and sprite editor. And you can see, after a couple seconds of waiting here, if we go to the correct frame, where are we? At the very end, there we go. Okay, so there's a little sprite switch, right, from here to here, okay? So here you can see his hand is empty. And this frame here, you'll see his hand has the cup sprite in it right there, okay? So here, empty. Here, I've used that cup sprite, right? We can have him pick it up like this, but that wouldn't really make sense, considering it's for the other arm. All right, there you go. And then at this frame here, if we select the prop, you can see if we select the cup prop and we open up the visible track, you'll see that the cup prop is visible up until this point right here, and then it's invisible. And I've switched it just like that. Okay, so you can barely notice it, but just switching out the prop and make it invisible, and just resizing the hand sprite to the correct size. And then here, visible again, okay? You notice the quick hand sprite change right there. Right, very sneaky. All right, but that's pretty much all I'm going to show you guys for this webinar here. So hopefully that kind of gave you the basics of the process for doing that little switcheroo, little tricky switcheroo there. Okay, so I think that's about it. Like I mentioned, we're going to get to the Q&A stuff now. So let's get on with it and go to the Q&A. All right. So first question is from Shafiq. When the hot dog vendor is moving, his right shoulder is connected to the front of his body and then moves to the back of his body. How can that be fixed? Okay, I think what you're mentioning here might be something like this right here. Okay, so unfortunately with certain characters like this, when you rotate the body like that, you're going to have the arm move in front of the body. Now, this character is a fairly bad example because this one here, it's not supposed to be in front of the, or it's not supposed to be this dark. It should be more monochrome. It should be more like the same shade as this arm right here. You can see, since it's darker, it's a lot more noticeable, okay? Now, what you could do here is you can go into your motion key editor for the body and take this arm and, like, you know, move it slightly over. But you can see that stretches out the body there as well. You can rotate it. But, you know, you're kind of stuck with this in this particular case. And this is a really bad example of that. Generally with other characters, you won't have this kind of issue just because the arms are different colors in this particular character. And you're going to have that sort of result, unfortunately. One way you can try to fix it is you can do something like the layer editor, for example. If I choose the layer editor, and I'm not sure if this will fix it or not, but we select his arm there. We can go to send to the back, or to the bottom there. Okay, so you can kind of move to the bottom that way using the layer editor, and that'll fix it. But then you have to do the same thing for the hand there as well. So with the hand sprite, you'll have to move that to the bottom. Okay, and then that moves the arm to the top there. So it's kind of like kind of annoying, but what you'll have to do is, you know, just take that hand and then move it to the back of, send to back of the torso. Should be here somewhere. Yeah, I think that should work. Okay, there you go. So that's what you'd want to do. You have to use the layer editor in this particular case. Now with the layer editor, if we press F3 and go into the timeline here, you'll have a layer track that'll open up under the motion tracks, motion group of tracks here. And you'll notice that there's keyframes in the layer track here as well. Okay, so here it'll go below. So basically every time here, you'll have to kind of just adjust the layer position for this character. You'll see it'll just kind of switch over like that. If we click that and delete that, maybe it'll just get the back. Okay, and here, do the same thing, just delete that and delete that. Okay, so basically what CrazyTalk Animator 3 does is it adjusts the layer position according to what it perceives that 3D animation is gonna, what position it looks best, it perceives will look best in that particular animation to make it appear more three-dimensional, okay? So just keep that in mind. And I guess you can fix it with the layer editor, but it's a little bit more time consuming. But it looks better, I think, of course. So yeah, probably a good idea to do something like that. Although this one, it looks like he only has one hand on his stomach and one hand on his back. Okay, so one of the restrictions you'll deal with 2D characters, unfortunately. All right, so hopefully that answered that question for you there. I believe that was Shafiq. Okay, cool. All right, answered. So Shafiq has another question. When you convert the seated motion to a standing motion, I believe it's possible to save that under a new name, but I forget how it's done. Oh, saving motions. Yeah, saving motions is pretty easy. If you've created a motion that you want to save, pretty simple stuff. Let's say, for example, let's have our street artist, our Elastic Folks dude selected here. And maybe this.
Hey, hello, my friend.
So for example, we created a custom motion here. Now, what you would do is you would open up the collect clip track here. And this is the, you want to click and drag into collect clip track for the duration of the animation that you want to save. So from here to here, let's just make the speech invisible right there. Or the speech, mute, we'll mute the voice right now, okay? All right, so from here to here, say we want to save this waving animation, for example. Now what we can do is we can actually save the waving animation and we can save the facial animation altogether as well, okay? And if we right click, we can go to add, rather export facial motion. If we just export, it's gonna export only the body motion. If we export facial motion, it's only gonna export the face. If we export perform, it's gonna export everything. And you can also add it to your action menu as well, okay? So if I just select add to action menu, we'll call it action Jackson, okay, why not? Okay, so the action menu is on your character. If I decide to go here and remove my character's animation, for example, I can right click on my character. Let's make sure he's flipped back the right way. I can right click on my character, go to action menu, and then there's all the motions that are on your character. There's the run, the walk, the talk, and everything like that. So these come embedded with your G3 characters, and then there's Action Jackson. Okay, so that's the motion that I created. And you can see we have the facial and lip sync and everything like that. If we turn up the volume there.
Hey, hello, my fine. Hey, hello, my fine.
Okay, so obviously it's not the entire dialogue that he's meant to say, but you can hear the audio. It includes the audio, the facial animation, and the body animation. So that's the perform. That's a perform motion. And facial animation will only be the face. Export will only be the body. If I did like something like export, like this, right click, export. We can also do it another way by going to the content manager, go to animation here, and custom, and motion, and just go ahead and save it as a motion as well. So like using this plus button here. This is just another way to do it. And we'll call it wave. Let's go back to frame 1 here. And click on our character. Notice that,
hey, hello, my fine.
At this point here, when you use this way of saving your motion, it's basically going to be the entire length of your project up until that point. So you're going to see wave. We delete Action Jackson right there.
Hello, my fine.
Wave is going to be the entire duration of the project, okay? So keep that in mind. This is not really an efficient way to save your motion, but if you want to save all the emotions in your character's timeline for the entire duration of the project, this is a good way to do it, okay? So you can see here.
Hey, hello, my fine.
All right, and that clip goes for the entire duration of the project, all right? So like I mentioned, if you want to do the entire project, animation for the entire project, then that's a good way to go about it. All right, I'm just going to delete that, keep things clean. All right, so those are the two ways you can kind of save your motions and your talking and all that stuff. All right, hopefully that answered your question there, Shafiq. Subdiacon asks, is it possible to import movements from iClone in a useful way? Yes, unfortunately the G3 characters which I'm using, they're not compatible with iClone motions. But with the G2 characters, you can import an iClone motion to your G2 characters. And they can use 3D animation. These ones right here, the G2 characters, like these dudes, like Emma. And the cool thing about Emma and other G2 characters, wherever she is, there you are, is you can use the bracket key to rotate them and move them around like this. I like G2 characters myself. I've used them for lots of different projects. But you can also go over here to animation, and there's editable 3D motions. I believe these ones, I'm not sure if they're come default. Probably not, I guess. But there's stuff like dances. You can do like a dance groove. Or, I don't know, some kind of whatever dance motion this one is here. And this is an icon motion, okay?
Something. You need to find your inner peace.
You can see she'll rotate to the side, do like, actually go off into the distance as well there.
There is no need for violence. It seems that your change has found you. Safe journey, my insatiable.
We have our dialogue going on in the background there. But yeah, unfortunately for G3 characters, you can't do that, okay? All right, so Manuel asks, do these pre-built characters have black outline capabilities? No, I don't think so. I don't believe we have black outlines for these characters. No. If you go to render style, sometimes you can adjust, if your character has a black outline, you can go to render style here and adjust the thin or heavy line right here. But for this character, unfortunately, it looks like you can't do that. So, but I mean, one way to, if you want to give your character black outlines, is you launch it in Photoshop and then, you know, do the whole thing like this. Like if I select my this part of my hand here, I can do what is it, layer style stroke, something like that. Okay, so now it looks like the hand is kind of grabbing it from the other direction. And if we, there we have that pink outline. You can change that obviously to black. Press OK, and then rotate it like this, maybe. And there it would appear like that. You know, you're holding the gun with the other hand or something like that. Okay, so that's kind of an easy way to do that. And then obviously you have to fix it up here a little bit, but yeah, that's how you can create an outline in Photoshop and then just import it back in. And you can do the same thing for your character as well, like all this stuff and whatnot. It would take a little bit of effort, obviously, but that's how you would do the outline. This doesn't come, you can't do it in CrazyTalk, unfortunately. Okie dokes. Don asks, how do you turn on and off the key paths on the stage? The key paths, I mean like the green lines, I'm thinking, that go behind your character when you are moving him. I don't think you can turn that off, to be honest. I've never even actually tried. I've just barely even noticed them. So let's see. I think Don's talking about this green line that appears behind your character. I don't know, maybe there's something in the preferences. I've never actually tried to look at it myself, but it doesn't seem like there's anything at this time. Maybe someone could take a more detailed look, and I don't really see anything at this point. It's something to consider for a future version, I guess. Apologies for that, Don. Okay, so Linda has a good question here. Why is his left hand referred to as right hand? And that's because I flipped the character. Okay, so this is kind of an annoying thing with CrazyTalk Animator 3, and I hope they fix it in future versions. For the purposes of this project, my character is flipped to the right. And so because of that, everything else is flipped. Okay, so if you bring in the regular G3 human character, it's going to import it in this way, facing to the left. All right. Where is he? Bring it forward there. All right, so he comes in facing this way, and then we flip him like this. All right. So when you flip him, unfortunately, it's kind of annoying, but it just flips everything else as well. Okay. So if I go to sprite on this guy, and I select his left hand, L hand right here, okay? And select this guy's hand, it's also L hand, okay? So it's just, yeah, a little bit annoying, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Hopefully they're gonna fix that in the future. This one here is right hand, and this guy here is right arm and right hand over here. Okay, so just be aware of that. It's kind of a little annoying. So that's why, Linda. That's why. All right, we'll answer that. Hope that's answered for you there. All right, so Dale asked a question. The voice is the priority. The order of priority is voice is larger than face puppet, larger than face template. With facial animations, what is the order of priority so we don't change anything by mistake? Okay, that's a good question, Dale, and that's something that I think a lot of us struggle with when we first start out animating with CrazyTalk or iClone or whatever. Which facial animation tool takes priority? And I think what the workflow that I go through here, I actually want to show you really quickly the facial puppet, okay, and how it combines with the. I'm just going to start a new project really quick. This is important, and I didn't really get to this that I should have here. I'm going to show you a facial. I'm just going to do a couple of facial expression changes on our character. Okay, so face key editor. Let's do happy. Let's go to a couple frames down and do happy 6, and a couple frames down and maybe do happy 5. Okay, so press F3 and go into our timeline as always, or open our face track rather here. And under the facial clip, you will see the 3 keyframes that I just added. So there's that one right here, transition to that, okay? So I just did 3 expressions. Now, what I can do here is if I go to a frame later on and I use my facial puppet tool and I use like something like this, let's just use the face and the smiley face and record. Okay, so something like that. Notice that it creates a clip, same as this clip right here, but there's tons of keyframes that it generates automatically, okay? So what happens is from here to here, the puppet clip has a transition area, okay? Which is right here. So these are the expressions that I added, okay? And then from here, nothing is gonna change in this area, but from here to here, that's when we go to the first clip or the first keyframe of our puppet clip. Now, if I want, like I showed you before, if I don't want to have any of these face keys right here, what I can do is I can just click and drag and delete them all, okay? If I just want to use the facial movement, okay, so again, it's going from here to here, we need to delete that first keyframe as well. And I'll take this keyframe right here and right click it, copy it, and paste it within this clip, okay? So now it's going to be the same from here to here. So generally, you can just say that what a facial puppet clip is, when you use the facial puppet tool, all it's doing is generating a whole bunch of face keyframes, okay? And you can delete those and copy and paste those as much as you want. So if I wanted my character, like in the previous example I showed you, he was listening to the vendor try to explain how you need to find inner peace or something like that. What I would do is, obviously he wouldn't have this expression, he'd have more of a perplexed expression. So I would select the first keyframe here, go to the face key editor, and under template use something like the sad, was it? Okay, like this, all right? So then we'd have this expression and his head would still be moving. So if someone was telling you, yes, you must find inner peace, you probably have this sort of expression, like, eh? Okay, and you can see it lasts for the duration of that puppet clip, but the character's expression remains the same, and you can change it to this one or this one right here. Oh. Okay, so like that, and then maybe back down to this one, right? Okay, cool. I just wanted to show you the relation between the facial puppet tool and the expression templates, okay? Because what I use, like I mentioned earlier, what I use the facial puppet tool mostly for is just, you know, random head nods and movements and stuff like that. I don't use it too often for, you know, the actual expressions, because I find it's much easier to time them. And when you're dealing with animation, the timing of your expressions is very important. So you can try to time it with your mouse live, okay? And you may have some success with that, but you may want to always tweak it later using the templates or using the transform and deformation tools and stuff like that. Okay, all right, so that helps out there. All right, on to the next question. Does CrazyTalk Animator 3 interface, so this is from Alana, does CrazyTalk Animator 3 interface with Toon Boom Harmony? No, not at the moment. I don't think there's any plans to interface with Toon Boom, unfortunately. I know Toon Boom is a much more advanced tool, but we don't have any plans to interface with that currently that I know of. So yeah, I can't really say much more on that. We'll move on to the next question, though. Kenneth asks, as far as microphones for your animated voices, what would you recommend? Oh man, I haven't looked at microphones for so long. There's one called like the Yeti or something like that. Maybe some of you can give Kenneth some recommendations in the chat window or something like that. But I have a Shure, like a SHURE SM58. I've had this thing for ages, like probably like 5 or 6 years. But it works for me. It's not really super professional voicing mic, obviously, but those can get quite pricey. So if there's one thing I know about audio equipment, it's that prices can go up very, very quickly for minor improvements. But if you're a purist, definitely you want to have, you know, top of the line. So But I think you're asking the wrong guy for audio equipment in this case, unfortunately. Um, all right, maybe someone has some recommendations in the chat window. All right, so Daryl mentions here, can you create your own mouth shapes? Yeah, you certainly can. So Daryl, the way that I imported in those, the gun, the hand with the gun and the Starbucks cup and everything, the way I imported those in, you can do the same thing for mouth shapes. Okay, you can create whatever mouth shapes you want and modify them in Photoshop. Okay, another question from Kenneth. Oops. Okay, that was my question Q&A panel there kind of went away. Will you be doing a webinar on compositing iClone and CrazyTalk characters in the same animation? We have no plans to do that, but that could be interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Probably putting CrazyTalk Animator characters into an iClone animation. It would basically just be rendering the video and putting the video in. But yeah, we could consider that for future webinars. Thanks, Kenneth, for that recommendation there. Kenneth also asks, could you use a character motion to have the vendor turn his body to hand him the hot dog? Yeah, there's a motion probably that is like hand hot dog to someone, I imagine. There's just, you know, I've installed so many motion packs on my computer that, you know, and like we talked about in the last webinar, there's no search function right now, which we hopefully that we will have in the next version. But trying to search through all this stuff is kind of like a little bit tricky. Let's go to occupations. I think there's something in here about like order, or there's like a server one here. I don't remember. I found one somewhere, maybe the vendor one. So there's an actual animation group called vendor, and introduce maybe this payment one. I don't know. Yeah, so that might work for the grab the hot dog and then just you can reverse it, and have them give the character the hot dog. I know in iClone you can reverse it, but doesn't appear so in this one. Not too bad. All right, good enough. Yeah, I don't want to kind of just work through all the animations in my library here. Different Ken asks, can we use a different external editor other than Photoshop to get the same results for sprite switching? Yeah, definitely. When you export, again, the PSD one that I showed you, where you export the entire character, I think that's, yeah, you can use whatever Photoshop compatible editor. I know a lot of people use GIMP, GIMP, for their editing needs. It's free for sure, a little bit slower, but has most of the stuff that Photoshop has. Question from Alan. Can I use iClone animations with CTA? Yeah, you can, but like I mentioned before, you can only use them with the G2 characters. And can I transfer the CTAs on a Mac and iClones on a PC? Yeah, you can copy the animations over, no problem. Shouldn't be an issue with the format. Okay, and Manuel mentions here, is there a big difference between the CTA Pro versus Pipeline? Also, will you be offering any CTA 3 purchase discount for the seminar? Excuse me. There's a comparison, a version comparison. You can probably find like CrazyTalk Animator edition comparison somewhere. Gosh, not helpful. That's not helpful, is it? There's a comparison window somewhere in the website. Let me just try and find it here. Yeah, so there's an edition comparison right here. Overview edition comparison, and you can find all the answers to your questions here. As far as I know, the pipeline version has these ones here that are added on. the ability to import and export your characters from PSD, which is really, really useful and time saving. So we're basically relying on Photoshop to allow you to edit your characters. That's the main feature of Pipeline, as far as I know. Okay, but you can kind of go through this entire list on your own and see what you need. As for the discount for the seminar, we do have to have the 10% discount for the content store. As for software, I don't believe we do. But we do have the discount for the content in the content store. You can probably email us, give us your feedback for future discounts. But I can't really, I'm not in the sales department, so I can't really give you any answers or confirmations on any of that stuff, unfortunately. Okay, so Cecil asks, is there any way to decompose a motion clip into its constituent keyframes or modify the motion to save it to a new motion clip? We have that in iClone, but we haven't put that into CrazyTalk Animator yet. I don't believe. So what Cecil's asking is, can I take this payment motion and can I just break it down into keyframes? No, I don't believe we can. But possibly in a future version, since we already have the technology with iClone to do that. But at this point here, you're going to have to deal with just doing it manually yourself, Cecil. So apologies for that, but we will catch up with the technology at some point. I can't say for sure, but hopefully it's the next version, because I think we generally, the features that are in iClone, we integrate those into CrazyTalk Animator, the next version. So, all right. Okay, so Lance asks, is there any way to import vector graphics? Yeah, you can definitely import in vector graphics, like Flash files and stuff like that. Will future versions ever offer an import from Illustrator as well as Photoshop? We already have the Photoshop import, so the PSD import for your characters, and for props as well. You can import them as PSD files. However, Illustrator, I'm not sure. I can't really give you a confirmation on Illustrator, but Photoshop is already there. Whenever you import in a prop or whatever from Photoshop, let's give you an example right here. Where's our relaxed hand here? Let's save this as a PSD file. Test. I haven't done this in a while, but bring in that test.psd. Actually, we can just click and drag it in. Yeah, we can click and drag it and bring it as a prop. Okay, and then it goes into the composer mode, and you'll have your layers right here. Okay, so layer 0, whatever this layer was, there you go. And back to stage mode. Where is it? There it is. So here's our prop, right? And sprite editor, only one single sprite, but 3 different kind of sections here. All right, that's how you can import in a PSD file. All right. So that answers your question there, Lance, except for the Illustrator thing. Okay, Mohammed asks, when you flatten the keyframes and remove visibility, is it possible to restore them back? Flatten the keyframes, Control Z, you can restore them back. But like I mentioned earlier, we don't really have that capability with CrazyTalk Animator yet, Mohammed. So apologies for that, but it is in the works. All right, and Michael asks, will all the motions in the marketplace for iClone work with the G2 characters? Yes, all iClone motions will work with G2 characters. So, I mean, if you're already an iClone user, it's a huge benefit to be able to, use all your iClone motions on your G2 characters. Now, they're not all going to be flawless, obviously, because they're not really meant for those characters, but you can also always just modify and edit them. And I did a variety of tutorials for CrazyTalk Animator 2 that tell how to refine and optimize those animations. All right. Okay, so Mohammed, hopefully I answered your question there about difference between Photoshop and other external photo editors. There's no real difference, but you need to be able to support PSD files. Okay. Shane asks, "What's the best way to create shadows of objects and people?" Oh, that's a. We could probably have a tutorial, a separate tutorial on that. It's pretty complicated, but we do have a silhouette content pack that you could use for some of your shadows. I believe it's called. There you go. G3 bonus silhouettes and poses is called. Look this up in the content store, and there's a bunch of like burglars and there's silhouettes here. Costello. I haven't actually used any of these guys yet, but there's a silhouette you can probably use as a shadow, something like that. Maybe squat them down a little bit and use the other character, and just kind of link the shadow to your character. I think that would probably work. But yeah, I can't really get into too much detail on that right now since we're already pretty over time. I just kind of want to try and get through these if I can. The rest of the questions here. Anthony asks, can you create a human character in CrazyTalk Animator pipeline from a photo that has been imported from CrazyTalk 8? Yep. So all the CrazyTalk 8 heads that you create, you can import them to your characters on CrazyTalk Animator. Okay, so one more time. If you created a character head in CrazyTalk 8, you can save that as a CT head, I believe it's called, and you can import it to CrazyTalk Animator. Okie dokes. All right, hope I answered that. Michael asked another question again about the, hopefully you got the answer to your question about the G2 characters there, Michael. Yes, iClone motions work on all G2 characters. They're very flexible, which is why I like to use them. Because if you're working for a client or something and they're like, hey, can you look at this guy, look at this scene from the back instead of from the front, you have to change all the angles of all your characters, right? So it's easy when you have G2 characters in that kind of situation. Okay, one more question from Pierre. Would Reallusion consider depth of field effects for CTA? Like you can achieve an iClone. It's great to have depth effects, but it would be nice to have items move in and out of focus. Yeah, definitely, Pierre. That's a really good suggestion. Depth of field, which is a camera feature, camera function that allows you to kind of blur out certain things in your picture to create the appearance of depth and focus on certain areas of your scene. Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion. I think we probably, I mean, we've had that in iClone for a long time, so I don't see why not. But yeah, I'll definitely pass your suggestion on to our development team there, Pierre. And I think that's a good suggestion for future versions. All right, we're done with questions. All right, so I think we're going to end it off there then. So thanks again, everyone, so much for attending. Hopefully you picked up some tips and tricks throughout the duration of this webinar. And again, we're going to be providing you with a recorded version of this. So make sure that you check your email for that. And yeah, we have been recording this live on Facebook Live as well. Kind of forgot to mention that, but yeah, make sure you fill the survey and get the 10% discount from the content store. And I believe we'll just yeah, end it off there. So thanks everyone so much for attending, and make sure you check out part 3 of this webinar series. We're going to do that on June 13th, I believe. All right, so yeah, we'll end it off there. I'm going to sign off and bid you adieu.